We're back with more on our top story this morning, the death of jailed Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny.
The news was reported by Russian media citing the Russian prison service. The vocal Kremlin critic was serving a 19-year sentence in a remote prison in the country.
NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel joins us now from Kyiv. Richard, first of all, just what are we learning about the circumstances surrounding the death of Navalny and just your thoughts right now?
So we're hearing from the prison officials as being quoted by Russian state media. So you have to take that with an enormous grain of salt. But the official account is that Alexei Navalny, who was recently transferred to this penal colony north of the Arctic Circle in Siberia, he was only transferred there in early December. Actually, he went missing for a while, and his own lawyers didn't know where he was. His conditions since he was arrested have been getting worse and worse, and this penal colony is known to be particularly harsh. It's a frozen gulag in Siberia. It's often called the polar wolf is its nickname, and it's a facility for men, houses about 1,000 inmates. And according to the official account, this morning, Alexei Navalny was taking a walk that he immediately began to feel unwell, quickly lost consciousness, that prison medical staff reacted, but that they were unable to revive him, and that he died. Vladimir Putin has been informed of his death, according to Russian state media. But the team of his own inner circle have not yet confirmed it, and they are immediately casting doubt on this description of events, the official account by the Russian authorities. One of Navalny's top aides said, "This is, if it is true, and we don't know if it's true, and his lawyer is on his way to the penal colony now, that it is not a case of Navalny died, but Putin killed Navalny." And I'm in Ukraine right now, and the president of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, just said a short while ago, weighing in on this, that it is, quote, obvious that Putin killed Navalny, that Putin does not care who dies. All he wants to do is maintain his position of power.
Richard, tell us any early reaction we've heard from the U.S. or anything else from Moscow.
So we have not heard anything official from Moscow except this acknowledgement. I suspect we'll be hearing more throughout the day. We are starting to hear from Navalny's supporters. They are accusing Vladimir Putin of orchestrating this, if not directly, if not having him killed today or poisoned in the recent time frame here, but of arresting him, sending him into horrible conditions that were getting worse and worse over time, and contributing his death through exhaustion and poor treatment. The details are unclear. We may get an official Russian autopsy, but it's very hard to believe, particularly these days, what is coming out of Russian state channels, especially when it comes to Alexei Navalny, who was the most outspoken critic, the most feared critic by Vladimir Putin in Russian society. Someone who was not afraid to challenge Putin directly, was not afraid to challenge the entire Kremlin. And it is not just Putin who wields power in Russia. There are many powerful oligarchs. There are many people around Putin who can also influence, can also wield a tremendous amount of influence.
So, Richard, you've been covering Navalny for years. Talk more about the legacy he leaves behind. And with the state of things right now, is there anyone who can even begin to fill his shoes as a critic of Putin?
There is Kara-Murza, who's another leader who, like Vladimir Kara-Murza, who's someone I've known for quite a long time as well, who followed Navalny's example. There are critics in Russia who live in exile. So there are people like Garry Kasparov, the chess grandmaster, who is a fierce opponent of Putin, but who lives in the West and is working against Putin and against the Kremlin from the outside, with conferences, with events, with speaking, with political activism. Navalny didn't want to do that. He wanted to stay in the country. So he was poisoned. He had to leave Russia to get medical treatment in Germany after he was poisoned with Novichok, which is a very lethal poison. It didn't kill him. He was extraordinarily healthy at the time. It was something of a miraculous recovery. But then, even after he'd been poisoned, he decided to go back because he didn't want to be an opposition member in exile. Now, maybe that was too brave. Maybe that was the wrong decision, or maybe his legacy will be stronger through his death and through his martyrdom. So we don't know exactly what the long-term legacy will be. But when he went back, that was a very decisive moment because he knew, everybody knew, that he would be arrested as soon as he hit Russian territory.
Richard Engel, we very much appreciate you and your expertise making the time to join us on this breaking story this morning. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.